We just jumped, both of us, not knowing really what was, at the bottom of the ledge that we jumped off of, but we just jumped. So it was great at first. We've hit some turbulence at times, and it's been rough. Having your own business is it's a character builder, or it's a character revealer, maybe. There's probably nothing better for personal growth than owning your own business. You find out a lot about yourself with owning your own business. But it's been good. God has been faithful through all of it. I'm Bryan Jernigan, husband, father, a Squarespace web designer, social media coordinator at Jubilee Church in Van Buren, and I can't wait to tell you Faithly story.
Welcome to Faithly Stories, the podcast that brings you inspiring tales from conversations with church leaders as they navigate the peaks and valleys of their faith journeys through their ministry work and everyday life. Join us as we delve into their challenges, moments of encouragement, and answered prayers. The Faithly Stories podcast is brought to you by Faithly, an online community committed to empowering church leaders, pastors, staff, and volunteers. Learn more at faithly.co. Get ready to be uplifted and inspired as we unveil the heart of faith through stories from the front lines of ministry on the Faithly Stories podcast.
Let's start with, did you grow up in a Christian home, or you came to faith another way? How did you come to faith?
Okay, gotcha. I grew up in a Christian home. I was raised in the Southern Baptist Church. So I guess I'm kind of like second generation, maybe somewhat part of my dad's dad was a Southern Baptist preacher. So my dad was a preacher's kid. And so, he grew up in church all the time. Whenever I was growing up, when I was young, we were there Sunday night, Wednesday night, Sunday nights. And so I grew up in church. I was saved whenever I was 12 at a revival at my church. Baptized the following Sunday. I can remember a lot of the feeling of it. I knew that the Lord was pulling at me. And it was when I talked to my wife, she's very extroverted. She's very, doing something like being on a podcast is second nature to her. She lives for that kind of thing. I would rather be on the other side of the camera. And so I don't want to go in front of a room and talk. I don't want to do that type of thing. So even the whole, the altar call of coming up front and everybody watching you walk up front and whatever, I was battling that big time. I knew that the Lord was calling me, Bryan, you need to do this. You need to, the Lord was calling me, and I kept just putting it off. And this is probably over several months' time at this revival. It was just, I guess it just got to the point where it was okay, this is not going away. And I know I need to do this. I know that that this is the step that I need to take. I know the Lord's calling me. Just go. Just step out into the aisle and walk to the front. It's the whole profess, with your mouth. You've got to, you have to say it. You can't confess with your mouth. You can't keep it to yourself. It's a profession of faith. So you have to go, and you have to, you can't hide it. So that was, like I said, I got baptized the following week. That whole public thing of baptism, and things were good. I was young. Whenever I got a little bit older and became, so my parents at that point were divorced, and they'd got divorced a couple years prior before that. I think so. I was 12 when I got saved. I was 10 when they got divorced, and so I lived with my mom most of the time. Went to dad's on every other weekend. And
do you mind if we get into that a little bit?
Sure.
I only mention it because the last 3 podcasts, yeah, it's been coming up a lot. So I was just curious because you said your dad was a pastor's kid, right? He's a PK.
Mm-hmm.
How did that affect your faith when your parents got divorced?
Well, I don't know that it necessarily affected my faith when they got divorced. It probably did actually have an effect on my faith on down the road. Like once you're in it, once you're living the life of my parents are divorced, my parents don't live together anymore. I have 2 separate households that I go to. Now I don't have a dad in the house. I don't have, another male role model around all the time for me to see that type of thing. So I think, and just maybe even to hold me accountable of like, hey, you need to be in church. I don't know how that would have affected me. That's something that I don't know that every kid who's the product of a split household thinks about, like, how would things have been different if my parents had still been together? Probably a pretty normal thing to think about. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure how that would have affected if I would have, because one of the things I had just mentioned, like, was talking about how one of the reasons when I stopped going to church was because of not wanting to be like a lot of the people who were at church that I saw as hypocritical somewhat, like that lived one way Monday through Saturday, and then they were a different person on Sunday mornings. And so I don't know like how much, it probably, if I'd had someone to talk to about, that's why, hey, I'm not going to church and this is why, I probably could have bounced that off of them and probably gotten some wisdom at that point of why, hey, that's maybe not your best route to approach this problem or this thing that you're going through. But it happened. Thankfully, the Lord had grace for me. Like it's because, like I said, it was about a 10-year period there where I didn't go to church, gone off to college, graduated college, started teaching and coaching. And then, so I was the teaching and coaching job that I got at the time. I was still in the same town where I had went to college at, about an hour down the road from here. Here's home for me. This is where I grew up at. So whenever I finally got a job back home and got moved back here to where all my family's at, hey, Bryan, do you want to come to church with us? Okay. Yeah, I'll go to church. And man, from that, so much has happened. I met my wife at church, and none of this stuff, like I wouldn't even be talking to you right now if not for that. Go back to, I think it was in it's like August. No, it was at the end of July in 2000. I met my wife. We both thought someone had tried to set us up. My older brother's wife, my sister-in-law, had set us up. And I'm thinking we have an 11-year age gap between the two of us. And so at that time, right now, I'm about to turn 44 and she's 32. So it's 11 in a few months. But whenever say we would have been 33 and 21 at the time, it's a lot different than 44 and 32. And so I was like, there's no way this is going to work. And then we went through that for about 6 months.
You and your wife have a lot of great stories. So I'm going to cut you off because I want to go a little bit deeper on what made you want to go back to church, right? Like compelled you. And then 2, like what is the thing you were working out with the age gap? Because that's a very interesting story right there.
Yeah. So what made me want to, so like I said, I grew up Southern Baptist and it was very traditional service. I was bored. It's kind of hate to say that, but it was the same thing every week. The order of service was the same. It was the same songs. It was the, singing from a hymnal and the back of the pew. And it was so like, and to be honest, like on top of the, not wanting to be like everybody else that was there. I shouldn't say everybody else, but like that's what my mind was. That's what I was thinking. That's what I saw it. That was my rationalization for it. When in reality, it might have been just laziness, but I rationalized it into something else. But on top of that, it was, this is the same old. Like I'm saved. I've got Jesus. Why do I need this? But then when they invited me to church, it was a non-denominational church. It was more of like the praise and worship was completely different. The message was different. It was no longer you have to get dressed up to go to church. It was a come as you are. It was a lot of the seeker friendly stuff, and it was seeker friendly. It was friendly to what I was, and it pulled me back in. And so, I think that was a lot of it. I found faith. I found all this stuff. It became interesting again. There was a different aspect, a different way of looking at it as an adult, because like the 10-year gap had gone from I'm a kid to now I'm an adult. There's a different perspective there at that point of how you look at things. So that was a lot of it. So going back to, I meet my wife, she's 21, I'm 33. I'm 33 years old and still single, never been married. And that's because I have very easily found something wrong with everyone that I dated. And I think a lot of that goes back to having parents that were divorced. So and not just divorced once, both of my parents at this point now have been through multiple divorces. And so, and just seeing that's what I saw. That was the example that I saw of marriage. And it was all just like how marriage doesn't work. And it's like, man, I don't want to go through that myself. I sure don't want to have kids and then put them through that. And I was immature. I wasn't ready for marriage. And I think I knew that deep down. If I get married now and I'm not ready for it, then I'm not going to be a very good husband. And so I think it kind of got to a point in life there where I was no longer dating to date. I was dating because I did want to find somebody to marry. I didn't want to find someone to spend the rest of my life. I didn't know how I was going to do it because I don't know how to do it. I'm very lucky that I found her because so her mom and dad they're 20 plus years of being married. They're not perfect by any means. They fight. They don't get along all the time and whatever. But getting to know her and getting to know them, they were a great example to me of like, hey, it can work. You can go into a marriage of like, hey, we both are going into this thing with the understanding that divorce is not an option. And so it's like, I think I can do this, whatever. And so it was getting past some of that for me. It was also getting past the age difference of like, okay, we spent like the whole first 6 months of our dating or courtship of both of us, I think, just trying to find reasons why it wouldn't work. And then at one point in there, about 5-6 months in, we said, what if we just give this a chance? Like, why don't we just try and see what happens? Because we keep trying to break up anyways, and we never do. We just keep going, I don't think this is going to work anymore. And then like a day later, hey, what are you doing later? We end up hanging out again. And then it's like, okay, this is point one. We just actually try. And so both of us just kind of getting over some of that. I think the age difference was, obviously it wasn't just a big deal for me. It was a big deal for her too. And so there was even some of it for me of like, why does her dad not like me? Like, he shouldn't like me. Like, what does this, 33-year-old guy want with my 21-year-old daughter? And he was never like that. And it was like, why is he not like that? Why am I not getting grief from him? But that never happened. I don't know. Like, I don't know what they saw in me or whatever, but I guess it was halfway decent and they wouldn't have let me stick around as long as I did. But yeah, so it was a lot to get through. And I think, even today in my marriage, the coming from divorce, it affects that. But I've got a wife she's patient. She gives me a lot of grace. And we just kind of we walk through it together. There's a lot of times when we fight that whenever we fight, I want to shut down. I don't want to talk. And she nope, we're not going to do that. And eventually I have to just cave and we talk about it and we communicate and we work things out, whatever. But that's helped us a ton is that we actually do fight things out. We do, respectfully, and, with love, but we fight. We have to, you have to get through those things, but you don't do it by avoiding them for sure. That just leads to resentment, I think, and which leads to nowhere good. So I'm definitely very blessed.
I have a question.
That I found her. Yeah, go ahead.
Did her parents also go to your church?
Yes. Yeah. So you're talking about the one where we met at? Yes.
So they saw you, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking maybe they saw you in church and they thought, oh, he's a decent guy. So let's give him a chance.
Maybe, yeah.
You're not some stranger off the street. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's true.
I only bring that up because I think church is the perfect place to find people to get married with and become friends with. But in most urban settings, it's like the complete opposite, because if you date somebody and you break up, you got to leave the church, which I think is ridiculous. It's like being an adult. It just didn't work out, But yeah, so that's the only reason why I bring it up.
Yes, I see that some with the whole, it for sure happens with marriage. If a marriage ends in a church, well, okay, which one of them does the church get to keep? It's almost like who keeps the baby, type deal. And yeah, I don't know. It shouldn't. I get that a little bit more with a marriage ending for sure. It shouldn't even have to be that way with that. I don't know why a church would have to feel like that they have to pick one person's side or the other, because both parties are probably equally, are both parties are at fault. It takes two to make a marriage work. It takes two to make a marriage not work. Obviously, the actions of one could be worse than the other, but it takes two in a relationship on either end of it. So, but yeah.
So you said you knew a little bit of building websites? Like, how did you get into that and what did you learn? And like, where are you in that process? Like, do you feel like you're a pro now or you're like, oh no, I'm still like figuring stuff out?
Okay. So probably the biggest thing here recently for us has been back in April of 2023. So just this last year, I resigned my job. I had been a basketball coach and teacher for the previous 19 years. And the year before, I had started getting this feeling like that I needed to get out of the coaching aspect. I have a wife and three daughters, and they're all young now. They're 6, 4, and 2. And with coaching, there's so much time that I missed at home. So much time that so many days during my basketball season, which is November through March, that there'd be several days in a row where I wouldn't see them awake. Like I'd see them in their bed maybe in the morning before I left, and I would see them in their bed asleep whenever I got home at night. And that had started to wear on me, and having to hear the things that had happened to them in their days from my wife. Now, she was great through the whole process. She was a great coach's wife. She any of the games that we played at home, and a lot of them that were on the road, she loaded them up and she brought them to the games. And before my game happened and after it happened, in the stands would be a lot of the time that I would spend with them during those months every year. And it just got to where that wasn't enough. My time had become more valuable. I was secure in my job, and the amount of I made a good salary. The job was pretty secure in that we're always going to need teachers and coaches, and I didn't have to worry about that aspect of it a whole lot. I was an assistant coach at the high school level, and so there's not a lot of you hear a lot of the stories in coaching and stuff where coaches get fired. They have to go find a new job from winning and losing, and that wasn't really at the high school level, and being an assistant, I didn't have to worry about that a whole lot. That didn't happen. You lose your job at that level for a lot of, it could be a lot of other reasons, but not for winning and losing. So I was pretty secure in that, and so it was tough to leave, but probably, so I had started looking at getting out of the coaching and trying to stay in teaching, and that was my plan. You talk about God has plans for you. Everybody thinks they have their own plan for their life, and that was where the plan that I had come up with. And I'm going to get out of the teaching thing, and then I can have a whole lot of my time freed up because the coaching thing's not happening anymore. And then I'll have the security of the paycheck every month. I'll have the security of, I know I've got retirement coming. I have the security of insurance being taken care of and all these other benefits. And it was, I thought that had the perfect plan built up. And that transition just kept hitting roadblock after roadblock after roadblock. And so that first year that I had asked out of coaching, it didn't happen. I was like, okay, well, I'll stick it out one more year, see what happens at the end of that year. And it was in this past year in January. It was probably in January that, so about a year ago now, that I just felt like the Lord was telling me, I've got something for you, Bryan, but in order for me to give it to you, you've got to let go of what you have. And I didn't, even though this stuff was kind of going on at the time, I didn't really even know what that was about at the time. I was still in the process where I was thinking that I was going to just be able to get out of the coaching and keep teaching. And so this sounds kind of goofy, but we were trying to figure out at the time, like, of how we were going to get some new bedroom set. And it's like, well, we don't really have the money. And it happened, like I felt it, the Lord speaking to me when I was in my bedroom. I'm thinking it's about that. And I'm like, okay, maybe we just need to sell all this stuff. And if we have to sleep in the floor or on the couch or something for a while, we'll do that. And it's like, okay. And I just went on about it. And then I kept hitting these roadblocks. And it's like, I got to a point where I knew I didn't know where I was going to go, where we were going, but I knew I couldn't keep doing that. And that's where, I know, like, So for people watching, my wife was on your first episode, and she talked about in there about how about this a little bit, but I knew that I had to do something different, and so I had told her when we were going on a spring break trip, because it was to the point where these coaching changes and stuff like this usually happen, and throughout in the year they usually happen at a certain time, and it wasn't going to happen. And I was like, Jessica, I think I'm just going to resign. I think I'm just going to. And I don't know and I told her that I don't know where I'm going. I don't know where we're going, but I can't stay here. We have to do something different. And so she was kind of taken aback, and we talked about it over spring break, and we were going on a trip, and we're going to a place where we had no cell phone service and going to be no distractions and stuff. And we could just, have time to think about it and have time to talk about it. And it never went away. It was like, yeah, this is what we've got to do. And so I resigned, and I had been doing Squarespace web design on the side, and that's kind of the plan. Part of it with like the teaching thing, I was going to continue teaching and just do this on the side. And I was like, that's going to be the plan. I'm going to do that. Whatever. I had started doing it because she has a publishing company, and she needed me to build a website, and that was probably 2 or 3 years prior. And I was like, okay, I think I can figure it out. I've always been kind of inclined to that kind of thing. And I had done that with my coaching job. Like, we had activity pages on our school district's website, and I put those together and stuff. And so I figured out how to build her website. And the next thing I know, I had, and this is still all while I'm coaching and teaching, I had another business in town that wanted me to build a website for them. And it's like, I think I can make some money at this. And at the time I was just thinking it's going to be on the side, but we're just going to do this. And kind of pretty shortly after that, she decided to quit the job that she was doing on the side and go full time, all in on her publishing business. And so we just jumped, both of us, not knowing really what was, at the bottom of the ledge that we jumped off of, but we just jumped. So it's been, it was great at first, and then we've hit some turbulence at times, and it's been rough. She's had to talk me, down a few times. I've had to talk her down a few times, but it has been, having your own business is it's a character builder, or it's a character revealer, maybe. There's probably nothing better for personal growth than owning your own business. You find out a lot about yourself with owning your own business. But it's been good. God has been faithful through all of it. It's one of the things I had to figure out how I was going to approach this whole thing was, am I going to try to be someone who can build you a website on any platform you want to be built on? And I was like, now this is something brand new for me. If I want to be good at this, I probably need to pick one and get and learn it inside and out. And so that's what I did. I went all in with Squarespace. And so then there's multiple reasons why I did that, whatever, that's not for here. But so I just decided to go all in, and I mean, you can learn anything on YouTube. You can learn anything on, researching through blog, reading blogs and this and that. That's what's so crazy. Like this, even the timing of this, there's no other time in the history of mankind that this could even be a thing. Like if you go back to whenever I went through college, if that's what I decided I wanted to do, I couldn't have just dropped out of college and decided to be a web designer. I would have had to have, gotten a degree in that and learned, I was able to, this last year, resign my position at teaching and coaching and go all in on building websites based off of what I had learned in my own research on the internet. But yeah, so it started with building her website for our publishing company. And it kind of happened by accident. Like I have always been kind of technologically inclined. And so for the longest, I've always been the person, probably since the iPhone came out, I've been the guy in my family who everybody comes to when their phone doesn't work. Hey, Bryan, how do I fix this? And because I just naturally am inclined to research those things and figure out the ins and outs. And again, it's going back to, I was single back then and so I had way more time on my hands, but when the newest software came out of the iPhone, I was researching like every new thing that it did, and I knew how the ins and outs of how they worked. And I've always found that kind of stuff interesting. Whenever, in coaching, whenever what you had on your school district's website became more and more important, and they've started making it to where like, hey, we need you guys to have an activity page for basketball. We need you to have an activity page for your senior high basketball team and your junior high basketball team. And it's like, who's going to do that? And most coaches aren't wired that way, but I was. And so it just kind of naturally happened that I was the one who got that responsibility. And I didn't it wasn't just something that I had to do. I wanted to do that. And so, generally speaking, the basketball activity page, other than there was another guy that our soccer coach, he was kind of wired the same way. He was kind of naturally inclined the same way. So like our two activity pages looked like professional websites. And then some of the other ones, it was like, what happened here? So it's just starting to do that. And I think that led to whenever my wife started her publishing company, she had known what all I had done through my school's website and plus running our social media accounts and all that stuff. And she's like, Bryan, you can figure it out. Like, why don't you do some research and figure it out? And so in that, we have a friend who is a graphic designer, and he had previously also done web design, and he just kind of got out of the web design part of it because he didn't like it as much, and he was making enough money just doing graphic design. And so I talked to him a little bit about the process and what are some resources where I can find stuff out, whatever this. And so it was a learning it by doing it. And so I just jumped in and figured things out. Here recently, I think one of the things that has really helped catapult me into really being able to just in the business aspect of it, of being able to make a little bit more money at doing this. And this was kind of I really feel like a God thing too. Like at the beginning of the summer, after I had resigned, I was like, I'm going to have to kind of invest in myself a little bit here and do some sort of further education here in this area so that I can, if I'm going to take myself serious and expect other people to take me serious as a web designer, I need to be able to do this the right way. And so I started looking at different things. I was in Squarespace communities on Facebook, and everything kept coming around to this guy named Sam Crawford. Like, oh, he's about to start a course, so you should look into that, whatever. And so I went to his website and signed up for his newsletter. And long story short, I ended up getting in on his course I think I paid $500 for it. And it has been unbelievable. Like the way he has everything laid out, there was 70 something video lessons in there about how you do everything from your customer management software to, revision software that you can use. And this is how you use it. And this is how you keep yourself organized. This is how you stack clients. It just kind of lays it all out you do this and you're going to be successful. And then all about treating clients the right way. And a lot of that's going to go a long ways into getting them to come back or word of mouth, them spread the word that you're doing it and you do a good job. And you're going to get more business from that. But yeah, I got in on it at $5 and I think he's charging $30 for it now. I got in at just the right time because it's one of those things like if this all had happened a year later, I probably wouldn't have done it because I don't know, man, I can't afford this, whatever. But and he's been great. He's helped me out personally a few times whenever I had problems with websites and hey man, just give me the login to it, whatever, and I'll just write some code for you. Oh wow, really? What? And so it's been a blessing for sure. But so I just jumped in and it was kind of I don't know what my next step is, but I'm going to okay, that's probably the next step. Okay, one step, just one step at a time, figuring it out as I've gone along. But there has been a lot of faith that has been involved in that. And it's been a lot of, there's been times where it's what am I doing here? This isn't, the whole imposter syndrome thing of really you're a basketball coach, whatever. That's, you're not a web designer. What are you doing? And especially in those months where the business is slow and what have I done to my family here? And then I had, my wife has to remind me hey, you heard from the Lord. He's not going to this is where the faith comes in. He's not going to lead you somewhere that is bad when you follow what he has asked you to do. And so, we were big Dave Ramsey people. I think when we got engaged, we started the financial peace class, and it was probably our plan when we got married was, okay, we're going to get out of debt before we ever try to have kids. And so I think it was a year into our marriage, we actually became debt free, went to Nashville, did the debt free scream, that whole thing. Had the 3 to 6 month emergency fund built up, and that had kind of, I almost feel here recently, I've had this feeling of that had almost become a god, that had almost become an idol somewhat. That was our security. not God, but this emergency fund that we had built up. And through this transition of careers here, that emergency fund has dwindled, and we've had to dip into it quite a bit in months. And so when we got to the point where it was like, okay, it's almost gone. It's almost, again, like another word from the Lord, like you were putting this thing up on a pedestal, and you're gonna, like, I was kind of taken back to the story of Abraham whenever the other kings tried to bless him with money and livestock and all this. And he says, no, I can't take it, because then you or I might think that it was you that made me rich. And it wasn't, it was God. And so it's like, it almost like that had to completely go away. And it did. At the end of December, it was gone. And December was a rough month, zero income. And January happened after the emergency fund was gone. And like, my business this month so far has been crazy. Like, so many leads every week, projects finished, new projects started. Like, it's wild. Like, it's amazing how, like I said, whenever I resigned, like, God has always taken care of me. And I have no reason to believe that, 43 years into my life at that point, that after 43 years worth of it, that he's going to stop now. Like, especially whenever this is from him, this is what, he told me, I have something better for you. Like, God's not a liar. So, it's just crazy to see that play out all the time.
I was going to say, isn't it? Because I'm 40, going to be 41. And it's interesting. The first 40 years, I feel like was practice. Because it's like I wasn't really learning. And afterwards, It's like, oh, when you actually learn how to start from scratch with literally nothing but God, it feels scary, but like going through it, and then, like you said, one step at a time, you gain confidence to a point where you're like, oh, nothing's scary anymore, because no matter where I am, God's going to bless it as long as I trust him. Right. And I feel like that's what you were going through. And that's such an amazing story for a lot of people because one thing I realize now is like, I feel like we've been lied to by the world. Like, oh, if you want to be this one thing, you got to go through this one path. But in life, like, you can reinvent yourself all the time. Right? For me, It was like, I had no idea what I wanted to do. And then I went to seminary and I thought I was going to be a pastor forever. And then I quit. And then I was going into tech and I thought I was going to be like a Google engineer. But like, I met Alicia. And so like all these zigzags, right? But at the end of the day, the one thing that kept consistently the same was, no matter how terrible or how great things were in my life, I always had to remind myself God is good all the time, and all the time God is good. And that just kept me together, man. And like, even if I lose everything, I feel like as long as I have that, I've started over like 3 times already in my life, so it's not a big deal anymore.
Even the little reminders that we get, he's even good in that. Even though you're doing what he's asked you to do, and you get to these places where you feel like, what am I doing? You doubt yourself. Was that really God? He's good enough even to give you these little reminders along the way of like, even if it's not necessarily like, oh, you get a big paycheck or something like that, but just these little reminders of like, hey, I got you. I've got you. I'm reminded of, so at our church, we just recently, this school year, started a private school. It's kindergarten through 5th grade right now. And so they're going through some of this because, they're having to trust that donors are going to happen. They're having to trust that they're going to be able to make payroll. And so like, I was talking to the head of the school at church one Sunday, and she's like, hey, Bryan, I don't know why, like, she was asking me about how business was going, and I was telling her, it was in December whenever everything was so rough. And I was telling her a little bit about it, and she's like, well, I feel like I should tell you that. I don't know really why, whatever, but she said that she had come across something, and she was a good reminder for her because they were wondering how they're going to make payroll at the time. I thinking, because we got all the stuff, we need somebody to step up, and one of our donors to step up. And so it did for her, but that was after the fact. But she told me, I had someone remind me that God is plan A and there is no plan B. She's like, I don't know why I need to tell you that, but I just feel like I should tell you that. So we leave church that day, me and my wife, and we're going up to Northwest Arkansas. It's about an hour drive. We're on the interstate, and we're going to see my little brother and his family. Like, he has 2 little girls that are very close in age to my girls. So we're going to go to a museum up there with all the kids. And we're on the way up there, and I think I was on the phone actually with my father-in-law, who's the pastor at our church. And I can't remember what I was talking to, something about, probably the sermon or something, because I'm handling the YouTube channel for the church and stuff. Anyways, My wife goes, Bryan, look, you're not going to believe this. And I look up, car in front of us, shoe polish on the back glass of the vehicle. It says, God is plan A. There is no plan B. Like, what in the world? Like I'm even thinking to the point of like, are all these other cars around us, are they even seeing that? Is it just being shown to me and my wife? Why would anybody put that on the back glass of their car? Like, how often do you see that? It's like, oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me. But just little reminders like that didn't do anything for us financially or anything, but it strengthened our faith. It's a reminder that God is good. It's a reminder that God's got you. And so just little things like that all the time. When we're trying to decide if we were going to actually even make this jump, we go to prayer at our church we have prayer on Monday nights, and it was at the very end of it. And I think my father-in-law had asked if anybody had a word for anybody. And my brother-in-law, he leads worship, and he'd been up there, he's playing the keyboard. And he's like, I've been fighting this the whole time. I've been fighting this, the whole church or the whole service here. And I didn't want to say anything because I'm so close to the situation, but it's about Bryan and Jessica. And, it was the whole thing of that we had been feeling of like, you can't, I don't know where I'm going, but I can't stay here. And so we hadn't told anybody. We hadn't told any of our family that we're thinking about doing this. And he says, I just keep getting this, like Abraham, I don't know where I'm going, but I can't stay here. And like me and my wife are both just in tears, like, oh my gosh. Like, and it's just something like that all the time. But even again, if it's not the blessing of actual financial difference, it's those reminders that let you know that, hey, you're doing good. You're okay. You're going the right direction. God's got you. And if God's got you, then it doesn't really matter where you go. As long as you're with him, you're going to be fine.
I appreciate your thinking process, because a lot of times part of this whole journey of Faithfully in the podcast was to help people realize, like, whatever you're going through, someone else is probably going through something very similar, right? And when we realize, like, oh, we're actually all the same, and we all want the same things. And a lot of times when we get into conflict, it's just a misunderstanding, right? Because we think the other person is getting in our way when really, like, no, it's not. So, yeah, it's refreshing. And
it's the whole we wrestle not against flesh and blood. Yeah. There's, and I think that's what's so great about, especially what y'all are doing with the podcast here, is that, like you said, like so many of us are going through the same things, and probably one of the number one tactics of the devil is to keep you isolated and to make you think that you're alone and that there's not anybody else going through what you're going through. You're the crazy one for what you're thinking or feeling, and that's just not true. There's nothing true about that at all. God is not a liar, but the devil is. So, I mean, but yeah, it's this creating just awareness of those types of things and letting people see other people's stories. This doesn't do anything but strengthen people. Going back to the Dave Ramsey stuff, like one of the things we always did whenever we were going through the process of trying to get out of debt, to encourage us, was to watch other people's debt-free screens. Like, okay, they were in like 5 times as much debt as what we had. If they can do it, we can too. It's just hearing those things. It helps. It does.
I have one ignorant question to ask, and then I have some fun questions to ask.
Okay.
Have you ever lived outside of Arkansas?
I moved away, and it was a 10-year gap. So I moved to Russellville, Arkansas, which is like an hour down the road one way. And I was there for 9 of those years. And then part of that being college and part of that being my first teaching and coaching job. And then I moved an hour up the road from here, the opposite direction, to Salem Springs. And I was there for 1 year and then back home to Alma. So yeah, everything has always pulled me back here. And then I lived in Northeast Arkansas until I was 4 years old. My family moved to where we're at now when I was 4. So we lived over there from 1980 to 1980. So everything that I can remember for the most part has been here, other than that 10-year gap.
The reason why I ask is I realize depending on where you are and where you grow up, you think that's like the world, right? And so like a lot of urban cities, like I grew up in New York, like I'm a New Yorker. I thought every city was like New York City, and I realized no other city is like New York City, right? So you being, like a native Arkansanian, I don't even know what you call it, but
Arkansan.
What is your thoughts? Arkansan, there you go.
Yes.
So I visited a friend who lived in Omaha, and she moved from New York, and I visited her and her family, and life out there is so different, like it gets dark at because the sun's going down on the plains, but everything's flat. So like you see the sun go down. Yeah. So I'm just curious as to what rural people think about people like in the city.
So Omaha, I've been there. Awesome town. Loved Omaha. But it feels familiar though. It is somewhat like here. Now it's bigger. It's a way bigger city than what I'm even from. This where I live is 5,000 people. That's the population within the city limits. In Arkansas, so our biggest city is Little Rock, but it's 5,000 people. So, I mean, you're thinking of that as a small town. That's a drop in the bucket to New York City. And so, I've visited Chicago, Dallas, Atlanta, some of these places, and it would be completely different. It's a completely different way of living. And then, like, listen to when my wife was on this, she talked about having to have a car. She's talking about the story about giving her car away, whatever. And like, I've got to have a car. There's no public transportation. You have to have a car to get around from one place to the other. I guess now it's kind of changed a little bit with that you can get an Uber or something like that, but you're probably going to be waiting a while. It's probably going to be a good 30, 45 minutes before, for any Uber to come to where I'm at. And so there's a lot of things like that. It just be completely different. Like it feels like thinking about living that way just seems completely foreign. The whole idea of walking everywhere you go, picking up groceries on the way home from work, like on your walk, and just carrying what you need, like for that day, not having a car, all those things. It's almost like a different world to even think about 10 acres, so just completely different way of doing everything, which can't help but change probably outlook on things. But, there's this perception, I think, in rural America that the big cities, that just pretty much everybody there is just crazy. Like the whole, because you see so much of the news coverage, whatever. And what does the news cover? Bad things that happen, right? Because there's more people in big cities, more of the bad stuff that happens is probably going to happen in big cities. And it's just one of those things, like what people in big cities think about people in rural America is a whole different stigma too. But everybody in rural America is not like that either. So like it's one of those deals where you have to judge everybody just based on them. It can't be, but the stigma that goes with it. Like I have shoes on right now. I live in Arkansas, but I do wear shoes. Even in my house, I have shoes on. So it's you can't trust a lot of those stereotypes for sure. They're generally based in something, but probably far from true still. So
thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to give perspective to people because I'm talking to people all over, and I'm just fascinated that and I think we need to be a lot more humble about different perspectives because we don't know until we live their life, and that's what I'm learning more and more of. Like the beauty of being a Christian is you can be wildly different on everything, right? But when we start talking about faith and how good Jesus is, it's it breaks every heart of a Christian, and I just find that beautiful that we only need that one common ground.
Right. It can break down all the walls. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's all it's done since the beginning is break down walls. So yeah, it's one of those things, definitely one of those things that I shouldn't even say one of those things. It is like the thing that can bring anybody together of no matter what, where you live, what socioeconomic, spot you find yourself in life, race, gender, anything. It's because we're all, made in the image of God. We all have we're all drawn the same to God, even though some people don't realize it and they don't know that that's what's missing in their life. It's present in all of us. It has to be, so we have way more in common than we do different for sure.
The last few questions. When was your I know she's the one moment?
So this is pretty easy. So she had never had that moment of stepping away from church. She's been solid her whole life. So when she was the whole idea of being set up with her was introduced to me. I thought, she's probably like a goody two shoes. Never said a bad word. Never, whatever. If she even knew half of the stuff that I've done, she's going to be gone. And so when we got serious, enough to the point where I was like, okay, it's getting there for me. I don't want to do this anymore. If when she knows everything about me, she's going to just leave. I'm not going to do that to myself. I'm not going to do that to her. I'm not going to do that to myself. And I don't want to put anybody through that. And so I was like, I'm just going to spill it to her. And this is probably a couple, 3 months into once we decided to actually give it a chance. And I just laid it all out for her. And I didn't know what she would do. And she was just like, okay, thanks for telling me. Because it's one of those things you don't want, it's like when you do something bad, you're probably better off if you go tell your parents yourself than them finding out from somebody else. I didn't want that to ever be a deal where it came up. We go ahead and get married and then 3 years down the road, she finds some stuff out about me and is like, why didn't you tell me that? That's obviously going to create trust issues. And now we got big problems. And so I just laid it out to her, and she didn't run for the hills. And so it was like, man, if she can give me that kind of grace and still be okay with it. And like, she knew that I wasn't the same person at that point. And so like, thanks for telling me. I'm glad you told me that. Now I don't have to find out from somebody else if it ever does come up for whatever reason. And that was freeing to know that, man, I can tell her anything then. I can absolutely tell her anything. I don't have to be anything but myself. Man, like, yeah, that was it. I found her.
I love that story, and I hate you because I'm so jealous. I'm editing that out, so don't worry. How would you like to be remembered? How would you like to be remembered by your daughters?
Oh, wow. You're going to try to make me cry, aren't you? How would I like to be remembered by? Man, just someone who, it's tough. Man, I want them to know that I love them. I want them to know that I love their mother. I hope that they know that I would do anything within my power for them. It reminds me, like, my father-in-law always tells a story about whenever he got stuck on the side of the road and he was with somebody, and this person that he was with didn't have the greatest relationship with his dad. And they're way on down the road somewhere. They were going on a trip, and he calls his dad to come help him out. And this guy's like, why do you call your dad for? And he's like, because I know he's going to come. I know he'll be here. I'm in trouble, and my dad's going to show up. And this guy just couldn't get that. And it's like one of those things where, like, yeah, everybody doesn't have a dad like that. I was lucky that even though my parents were divorced, my dad is that way. I know, like, I could be 10 hours away, and if I called him and said I'm stuck on the side of the road and I don't know what I'm going to do, that he'd take off and he'd find a way to get there to be able to help me out. And like, I want that for my kids. I want them to know that I've always got their back. But I hope that they would think of me as someone who led them well. I think that me and my wife I hope we are doing a good job of showing them that, what a relationship with Jesus looks like, and that, that he loves them even more than we do. That's hard to admit sometimes as a parent. Like, man, like, we dedicate our children in church, whatever. And it's like, man, you give them over. Like, there's nothing like being a parent of making you realize that you really don't have any control. Like, you have no control over things. Like, there's only so much you can do to protect them. And then you have to, becoming a dad and starting my own business, there's been nothing that has ever in my life stretched me in my faith in so many ways as those two things. But I hope that they think that I led them well, and that they just understand exactly how much that I love them. And they probably won't get that until they have their own kids, because you can't until you have your own children. It's hard to comprehend.
Thank you. What are you hoping for at Faithly?
So, man, I really think what y'all are doing is, obviously, it's, y'all kind of market yourselves as the LinkedIn for ministry type deal, right? And that's such a great concept, because churches, I think, can be isolating at times. Of, you don't go outside of the walls of this church for help with anything, or how do you deal with a certain problem? Like, you have to talk to other people in your church. Like, we're all on the same team. I think one of the things that we do in this world that probably does upset the Lord the most is the division in the church. We're all part of the church, right? And the church is not even buildings, it's the body, it's Jesus's followers. We're all supposed to be on the same team, and churches get caught up in competition so much. I know, like, especially in small towns, the number one way that a church grows is from the decline of another church. It shouldn't be that way. But it's just a way to, like, and with what I'm doing specifically, like, with my web design, like, and it hadn't come through Faithly yet, but I think I'm on my third. So I just got a contract for my third church for building a website for them. And I don't go to church there, but I want to build a website that's going to help their church. And so, like, but then also, like, so the stuff that I do through social media, through our YouTube channel for the church and things like that, being able to reach out to other people that do those similar things at their church. Like, what do y'all do? Like, your church's YouTube channel is successful. What's been kind of the secret? What's helped y'all the most, that type of thing. But just y'all having a platform that connects people from different churches together to be able to discuss those things that would have never happened otherwise, especially whenever you're talking about, I can be speaking to somebody that's at a church in New York City all the way down here in Arkansas. So that obviously would never happen. And so that's just, that's a great resource, a great tool to have, and just hoping to use it for those reasons.
And then how can we be praying for you and your family?
Oh, probably. So the number one thing would be just that we have direction. continued, hearing the Lord. What does God say about this next step? What is those type of things? And like those, just the reminders and stuff that we have, and to have your ears tuned into the Lord to be able to hear those things. Because I don't, you guys don't have to pray for him to speak to us. He's always speaking to us, but maybe more so for us to be able to hear him. So just for direction and for continued, like, being able to hear the Lord, and protection from anything outside. There's the devil's trying to tear the family down all the time. It's the number one, the nuclear family is probably the best form of governance that the world's ever seen. And so if we could tear that apart, then so just protection over our family and protection over our marriage, that type of thing would be great. We can always never take too many people praying for us for those things.
Thanks, Bryan.
Yeah.
This was great. And man, I want to visit you and your family.
Yeah, anytime, man. Anytime. Just come on down to Arkansas. You catch a flight to Fort Smith, and we go see U.S. Marshals Museum, and then you come stay at the house with us.
Thank you for tuning in to the Faithly Stories podcast. We pray this episode gave you the encouragement you needed to continue on your journey. The Faithly Stories podcast is brought to you by Faithly, an online community committed to empowering church leaders, pastors, staff, and volunteers. The Faithly digital platform offers innovative and practical tools and resources to enhance connection, foster collaboration, and promote growth within the church and ministry space. Remember to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help reach more listeners like you. Stay tuned for more uplifting tales from the front lines of ministry on the Faithly podcast. Stay bold, stay faithful, and never underestimate the power of your own story.
You're listening to this podcast, so I know you've got a curious mind. Here's a helpful fact you might not know yet. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save over $900 on average. They make it super simple. Pop over to Progressive.com, answer some questions, and you'll get a quick quote with coverage options tailored to your choices. Plus, you'll see which discounts you may qualify for, like the online quote discount or savings for paying in full. In fact, 99% of Progressive Auto customers earn at least one discount. See if you could save when you switch to Progressive. You'll feel good about making a savvy choice. Visit Progressive.com and see if you can enjoy a little extra cash back. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $946 by new customers surveyed who save with Progressive between June 2024 and May 2025. Potential savings will vary. You're listening to this podcast, so I know you've got a curious mind. Here's a helpful fact you might not know yet. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save over $900 on average. They make it super simple. Pop over to Progressive.com, answer some questions, and you'll get a quick quote with coverage options tailored to your choices. Plus, you'll see which discounts you may qualify for, like the online quote discount or savings for paying in full. In fact, 99% of Progressive Auto customers earn at least one discount. See if you could save when you switch to Progressive. You'll feel good about making a savvy choice. Visit Progressive.com and see if you can enjoy a little extra cash back. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $946 by new customers surveyed who save with Progressive between June 2024 and May 2025. Potential savings will vary.